JP Morgan is right now the biggest bank in the United States, probably in the history of the United States.
JP Morgan.
Over the last century, of the notable bank mergers that have taken place, JP Morgan and its predecessors have been involved in almost 1/4.
Ever wondered how the biggest bank in the entire world was built? How did it rapidly rise from humble beginnings to dominate global finance? Today we're diving into that incredible story, full of ambition, power, and big money. Ready? Let's get started. So what does it take to build the biggest bank in the world? Think about it. How does a bank grow to be so massive that it holds trillions of dollars in assets and operates in over 100 countries? Well, today we're talking about JP Morgan Chase, the financial giant that stands at the top. It's a story full of ambition, fierce competition, massive deals, and of course, some drama along the way. You know we love a good story, right? Well, this one's got it all. But before we jump into how JP Morgan Chase became the biggest bank in the world, let's rewind a bit. Really, it all started in the mid-1800s with a man named John Pierpont Morgan, or JP Morgan as he's famously known. This guy wasn't just any banker. No. He was like the godfather of American banking. Think of him as a real-life Monopoly game master, but with much bigger stakes. Born into a wealthy banking family in 1837, JP Morgan had the perfect launchpad for success, but it wasn't handed to him. He worked hard and had an almost supernatural ability to see opportunities where others saw chaos. You'll see what we mean in a bit. And here's something to keep you hooked. JP Morgan didn't just want to be rich, he wanted to control entire industries. Yes, he saw potential in consolidating industries, especially ones that were struggling. And guess what? He didn't just fix them, he dominated them. Now let's fast forward to the late 1800s. The United States was in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. There were railroads being built, factories booming, and people moving to cities faster than you can say Wall Street. But here's the thing. This rapid growth came with a lot of financial chaos. Railroads were going bankrupt left and right, and businesses were desperate for funding. Enter JP Morgan. Morgan saw an opportunity here that no one else did: consolidation. Instead of letting all these companies fail, he thought, why not bring them together under one roof? This would create stability and it'd be much easier to control. And let's be honest, JP Morgan loved control. He worked his magic with the railroad industry, merging companies and creating some of the biggest railroad networks in the country. He basically single-handedly saved the American railroad industry from collapse. And if you think that sounds impressive, just wait, it's only the beginning. But here's where things get even more interesting. In 1907, America was on the brink of financial collapse. Again, banks were failing, the stock market was crashing, and people were panicking. So, who do they turn to? JP Morgan, of course. And what he did next might just blow your mind. Picture this, it's 1907, and America is teetering on the edge of another financial disaster. The stock market had taken a nosedive and banks were failing left and right. It was chaos. People were lining up to withdraw their money, terrified that the entire banking system was about to crumble. Yup, it was that bad. So who steps in to save the day? None other than JP Morgan. At this point, Morgan had built such a reputation for being the go-to guy during financial crises that even the government turned to him for help. Let that sink in. The government asked a private banker to save the American economy. In a series of meetings held in his grand library on Madison Avenue, JP Morgan gathered the most powerful bankers of the time. Together, they pooled their resources and basically bailed out the entire banking system. It was like a one-man Federal Reserve before the Federal Reserve even existed. And guess what? It worked. JP Morgan single-handedly stopped the financial panic of 1907, proving once again that he was the undisputed king of Wall Street. But don't get too comfortable. You see, while JP Morgan saved the day, this crisis led to the creation of something even bigger, the Federal Reserve. And JP Morgan's influence didn't stop there. Oh no, he was just getting started. JP Morgan passed away in 1913, but his legacy was far from over. The bank he founded, JP Morgan & Co., would go on to shape the future of American and global finance. In fact, the story really takes off after his death, believe it or not. So how did JP Morgan Chase, as we know it today, come about? Let's jump to 1959. JP Morgan & Co. merged with Guaranty Trust Company of New York, forming what was known as Morgan Guaranty Trust Co. Now, this was a huge deal because it combined the powerful investment banking side of JP Morgan's legacy with a commercial banking powerhouse. It was like combining the best of both worlds, and the bank grew even bigger. But the real game changer came decades later in 2000 when JP Morgan merged with Chase Manhattan Bank. At the time, it was one of the largest banks in the US, founded way back in 1799 by Aaron Burr. Yes, the same Aaron Burr who dueled Alexander Hamilton. When JP Morgan and Chase Manhattan joined forces, it created a banking giant so massive that it was hard to even comprehend its size. Now let's fast forward to 2008. Remember the global financial crisis? Of course you do. Housing markets collapsed, banks failed, and economies around the world were on the verge of falling apart. But guess who not only survived but came out stronger? Yep, JP Morgan Chase. Under the leadership of CEO Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan Chase made some of the smartest moves during this period. While many banks were crumbling under the weight of bad loans and risky investments, JP Morgan Chase had kept its operations relatively stable, and when opportunity knocked, they answered. During the crisis, JP Morgan Chase acquired two massive financial institutions, Bear Stearns and Washington Mutual. Bear Stearns, a major investment bank, was on the brink of collapse, and Washington Mutual, one of the largest savings and loan companies, had just failed. JP Morgan Chase swooped in, brought them both for a fraction of their value, and significantly expanded their reach. These moves not only saved JP Morgan Chase from the worst of the crisis, but also positioned them as a global financial superpower. By the time the dust settled, JP Morgan Chase had firmly established itself as the biggest bank in the world. But let's not forget, being the biggest bank in the world comes with its fair share of challenges. With such immense power comes enormous responsibility, and JP Morgan Chase hasn't always had a spotless reputation. Over the years, they've faced multiple legal battles, from accusations of mortgage misdeeds during the housing bubble to allegations of market manipulation. In fact, the bank paid billions in fines related to its role in the financial crisis. Yet, despite these setbacks, JP Morgan Chase has managed to maintain its dominance. It's like a giant wave. There are ups and downs, but the momentum keeps pushing forward, and the bank continues to stay on top of the financial world. And if you think that's the end of the story, think again. JP Morgan Chase didn't just rest on laurels after 2008. They kept innovating, and now they're embracing a whole new wave of change, the Fintech Revolution. Intrigued? You should be. In today's world, banking is rapidly changing. We're living in the age of smartphones, cryptocurrencies, and artificial intelligence. So how does a massive bank like JP Morgan Chase stay on top? Well, they've embraced the Fintech Revolution in a big way. Under CEO Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan Chase has been pouring billions into developing advanced technology. They've launched digital banking platforms, invested in blockchain, and even created their own cryptocurrency called JPM Coin. They're not just keeping up with the times, they're leading the charge. And it's not just about technology. JP Morgan Chase is also expanding globally. They're making huge moves in places like China, aiming to capture more of the rapidly growing Asian markets. At this point, JP Morgan Chase isn't just an American bank, it's a global powerhouse that's looking to dominate on every continent. So what does it take to build the biggest bank in the world? It takes vision, risk, power plays, and the ability to adapt to an ever-changing landscape. From JP Morgan himself consolidating industries in the 19th century to the modern-day tech innovations led by Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan Chase's journey is one of ambition and relentless growth. And who knows what's next? With the way things are going, JP Morgan Chase is likely to stay on top for a long time to come. But one thing is certain, the story of how the biggest bank in the world was built isn't over yet. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this dive into the world of banking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down your thoughts.